Mongolia has more horses than people, more empty land than any country on Earth. And in 2026, for the first year since the late 18th century, more young Mongolians moved back to the countryside than left it for the city. The country contains 3.4 million people. It contains 4.7 million horses. It is the 19th largest country in the world by area, 1,564,000 square kilometers, roughly the size of Western Europe, and the least densely populated sovereign nation on Earth, 2 people per square kilometer. The next least populated country, Namibia, has 3. Half the population is concentrated in a single city. The capital, Ulaanbaatar, holds approximately 1.7 million people. The other half of the country lives across an area larger than Spain, France, and Germany combined. They live, in 2026, in roughly the same way they have lived since the 13th century, in felt tents, on horseback, moving 4 times a year, following the grass. Roughly 30% of all Mongolians are estimated by the Mongolian National Statistics Office to still practice some form of pastoral nomadism in 2026. That figure is significantly higher than in any other country of comparable economic development. It is also, after 30 years of steady decline, no longer falling. This is the story of the last great nomadic civilization on Earth, in a country bordered by the 2 largest authoritarian states in the world, and the strange reversal that has begun in the past 5 years to bring its young people home. Mongolia sits at the heart of the Asian landmass, between roughly 41 and 52 degrees north latitude, landlocked between Russia to the north and China to the south. The Russian border runs for 3,452 kilometers. The Chinese border runs for 4,710. Mongolia has no other neighbors. The terrain is a vast plateau with an average elevation of around 1,580 meters. To the north and west rise the Altai, Khangai, and Henti mountain ranges, with peaks above 4,000 meters. To the south stretches the Gobi Desert, not a sand desert primarily, but a cold, high-altitude semi-desert of gravel, rock, and sparse grassland, occupying roughly 30% of the country's land area. Between the mountains and the desert lies the steppe, an expanse of open grassland, lakes, and rolling hills that has, for at least 4,000 years, been the largest continuous pasture on the planet. The climate is harsh. Winter temperatures across most of the country drop below -30 degrees Celsius. The capital, Ulaanbaatar, is by mean annual temperature the coldest national capital in the world. Colder than Reykjavik, colder than Helsinki, colder than Ottawa. Summer temperatures in the Gobi reach 40 degrees. The annual swing in some regions exceeds 80 degrees Celsius. The country has 270 days of sunshine per year. It is one of the sunniest places on Earth at its latitude. The sky on the steppe is a defining feature. Mongolians call their country, in a phrase that appears in songs and poems and tourism brochures alike, the land of the eternal blue sky. For most of its history, this land was not a country in the European sense. It was a homeland for a confederation of pastoral peoples, Mongols, Uryankai, Buryats, Kazakhs, who moved with their herds across grasslands that recognized no fixed border. They herded 5 animals, in a combination so consistent that it has a name, the 5 snouts: horses, cattle, including the high-altitude yak, sheep, goats, camels, the 2-humped Bactrian. The animals provided meat, milk, leather, wool, transport, fuel from dry dung, and the foundation of an economy that for thousands of years required no settled agriculture and no cities. In 1206, a chieftain named Temujin united the warring tribes of the steppe and was given the title Genghis Khan. Within a single generation, his armies, never more than around 100,000 mounted warriors at any one time, assembled the largest contiguous land empire in human history. At its peak, under his grandson, Kublai Khan, the Mongol Empire covered approximately 24 million square kilometers, roughly 16% of the world's land area. It stretched from Korea to Hungary. It governed an estimated 100 million people, more than a quarter of the world's population at the time. The empire fragmented in the 14th century. The Mongols returned over the following centuries to the steppe. In 1691, they were absorbed into Manchu China. They remained formally part of China until 1911. Following the collapse of the Qing dynasty, Mongolia declared independence. In 1924, under Soviet influence, it became the world's second communist state, after the USSR itself. For 67 years, Mongolia was a Soviet satellite. The Russians built apartment blocks in Ulaanbaatar, electrified the capital, established universities, and suppressed Buddhist religious practice, destroying an estimated 700 of the country's 750 monasteries, and executing or imprisoning tens of thousands of monks during the purges of the 1930s. The nomadic herding economy was forcibly reorganized into state collectives. In 1990, Mongolia held its first democratic election. It dismantled the Soviet collective system. Today, in 2026, it is a multi-party parliamentary republic, one of the few stable democracies in Asia, sitting between two states that are not. The herding tradition survived the Soviets, the collectivization, and the post-Soviet collapse. By 1995, with the privatization of livestock, the number of herding households in the country had actually risen. In 1989, before democratization, around 17% of the population lived as herders. By 2000, that figure had reached 35%. Then came the dzud. A dzud is a Mongolian-specific climate disaster, a winter so severe that livestock cannot reach pasture beneath the snow and die in mass numbers. Dzuds occur on average every 5 to 10 years. The dzuds of 1999 to 2002, of 2009 to 2010, and of 2023 to 2024 were the worst in recorded history. The 2009-2010 dzud killed an estimated 10 million animals, over 20% of the national herd. The 2023-2024 dzud killed an estimated 7.9. Tens of thousands of herding families were ruined in each event. Many migrated to Ulaanbaatar, settling in the gers districts on the city's outskirts, informal settlements of felt tents and small wooden houses without sewage connections. By 2020, Ulaanbaatar held nearly half the country's population. Gers districts surrounded the formal city. In winter, the burning of coal and trash for heating made Ulaanbaatar, by some measurements, the most polluted capital city on Earth. The air quality in the worst months of 2019 reached levels more than 20 times the WHO recommended maximum. The herding life in 2020 was widely understood to be ending. Government reports projected that by 2050, fewer than 10% of Mongolians would still be nomadic. The young were leaving the steppe. Then, beginning around 2022, something unexpected began to happen. A small but measurable movement of young Mongolians, many of them university-educated, urban-raised, began returning to the countryside. Some inherited family herds, some bought animals, some partnered with relatives still on the steppe. The Mongolian National Statistics Office, in a 2025 release, reported that for the first time since systematic record-keeping began, the rural population had grown, slightly but unmistakably relative to the previous year. The herder population had increased by approximately 2.3%. The trend, while small in absolute numbers, broke a 3-year decline. The reasons are several. Cashmere prices, Mongolia produces around 40% of the world's raw cashmere, have remained at near historic highs. Solar panels, satellite internet via Starlink, and battery technology have made remote living, for the first time in history, technologically connected. A young herder in 2026, in a gers 400 kilometers from the nearest paved road, can run a refrigerator, charge a laptop, video call a buyer in Italy, and check market prices in real time. Equally, the conditions in Ulaanbaatar have deteriorated. Air pollution, unemployment, cost of living. A government study in 2024 found that 31% of Mongolians aged 18 to 35 had, in the previous 12 months, considered moving from the city to the countryside. 5% had actually done so. The herder's life in 2026 has not become easy. It has become, after 2 centuries of receding, marginally attractive again. The 5 animals remain. So does the felt tent, the gers, more familiar to non-Mongolians under its Turkic name, yurt. The gers is engineered for nomadic disassembly. The frame, of wooden lattice and birch poles, can be dismantled and reassembled in under 2 hours by a single family. The walls are felt, made from compressed sheep's wool, and provide insulation effective at temperatures down to -40 degrees Celsius. A central stove, fueled by dried dung or coal, heats the interior. The door always faces south. A herding family in 2026 typically moves 4 times a year: spring, summer, autumn, winter pasture. The distances vary by region. In the Gobi, a family may move 50 kilometers between camps. In the Altai Mountains of the north, the distances are shorter, but the terrain is harder. The horses do the work. A typical herding family owns 5 to 15 horses for daily use, in addition to their livestock herd, which may number 200 to 1,000 animals. The mountains of the west are home to a particular variant of the nomadic tradition. In the Bayan-Olgi province, on the border with China, Russia, and Kazakhstan, lives the country's largest ethnic minority, the Kazakhs. They number approximately 110,000, around 4% of the population. They speak Kazakh, practice Sunni Islam, and have for centuries hunted with golden eagles. The eagle hunters, the Burkachi, are predominantly men, though in the past decade, a growing number of women have entered the practice. A trained golden eagle, taken from the nest at 1 to 4 years of age, is kept by a single hunter for between 5 and 10 years before being released back to the wild. The eagle hunts foxes, marmots, and occasionally wolves. It weighs around 6 kilograms. Its wingspan is over 2 meters. Its talon grip is measured at approximately 400 pounds per square inch. The annual Golden Eagle Festival, held each October in Bayan-Olgi, draws around 100 active hunters. The number of practicing Burkichi in 2026 is estimated at fewer than 250. The tradition, like the herding life, is small. It has not disappeared. To the north, on the border with the Russian Tuva region, lives an even smaller community. The Duka, known internationally as the Tsatan, the reindeer people, number approximately 200. They herd reindeer through the taiga forests of northern Mongolia, the southernmost extent of the Eurasian reindeer's range. Their gers are conical, made of birch bark and reindeer hide. They are among the last reindeer herding cultures on Earth. The herd, in 2026, contains approximately 2,000 animals. The community is divided between 2 seasonal camps. Most of the children attend boarding school. Their language, a Turkic tongue closely related to Tuvan, has fewer than 300 fluent speakers globally. The land itself contains animal populations found nowhere else on Earth in similar abundance. The Mongolian gazelle, Procapra gutturosa, survives in the eastern steppe in herds estimated by 2024 satellite surveys at over 700,000 individuals. The migrations of the gazelle are among the largest land mammal movements remaining on the planet, comparable to the wildebeest migrations of the Serengeti, but observed by almost no one. Snow leopards, between 1,000 and 1,500 individuals, live in the Altai Mountains. The taki, the Przewalski's horse, the world's last truly wild horse, was extinct in the wild by 1969 and has been reintroduced to Mongolia from captive populations. As of 2024, around 850 taki live free again in their original range. Beneath the steppe, the country holds something else: the world's largest known reserve of rare earth elements outside China. Significant copper, gold, coal, and uranium deposits. The Oyu Tolgoi mine in the South Gobi, a joint venture between the Mongolian government and the Anglo-Australian company Rio Tinto, is, by some projections, set to become the world's 3rd largest copper producer by 2030. Mining accounts for approximately 25% of Mongolian GDP. The country has the resources, in theory, to become wealthy. Geography complicates this. Mongolia's 2 neighbors, Russia and China, control 100% of its land trade routes and over 90% of its export volume. China takes around 86% of Mongolian exports, primarily mineral ores and cashmere. Russia supplies most of Mongolia's fuel and electricity. The country has called this geopolitical position, in its own national security doctrine, the third neighbor problem, the strategic need to cultivate relationships beyond Beijing and Moscow. Japan, South Korea, the United States, and Germany have been designated in Mongolian policy as third neighbors, partners through diplomacy and trade rather than land. The third neighbor strategy has produced in 2026 some of the most surprising statistics in Asia. Mongolia has signed strategic partnership agreements with NATO. It has contributed troops to UN peacekeeping operations on every inhabited continent. It is, despite its location, one of only a handful of post-Soviet states never to have backslid from democracy. Freedom House classifies it in 2026 as a free country, the only such classification in the entire Northeast Asian region between Japan and the Baltic states. Between two of the world's most powerful authoritarian governments, a country of 3.4 million pastoralists has, against significant external pressure, kept its parliament, its courts, and its elections. In the Altai Mountains, 400 kilometers west of Ulaanbaatar, a 24-year-old herder named, hypothetically, Batushik, walks his horse along a ridge at sunset. He has in his ger a satellite internet terminal. He sells his family's cashmere to a buyer in Mongolia who exports to Italy. He moved back to his parents' herd in 2023 after 4 years studying engineering in Ulaanbaatar. He says in interviews, of the kind given to journalists and documentary teams in increasing numbers since 2024, that he intends to stay. There are 3.4 million people in Mongolia. There are 4.7 million horses. There are 25 million sheep, 27 million goats, 5 million cattle, and 470,000 camels. The total livestock population in 2024 was approximately 64 million. There are 19 livestock animals for every Mongolian. This is not a country that has settled. It is, in 2026, the largest piece of land on Earth where humans have, by collective choice, refused to. The empire ended in the 14th century. The animals did not. The grass did not. The sky, still called eternal in the country's own language, did not. And the people who, for 30 years, were thought to be leaving the steppe forever, some of them, in numbers that did not exist before, are walking back across it. The grass is high in 2026. The summer was wet. The horses have come through the winter. The next migration is in 3 weeks. The ger will come down in 2 hours. It will go up again, somewhere else, in 3.